Michelle Reinen, Administrator with Division of Trade and Consumer Protection, is our guest here on WRCO to talk about some September topics to maybe keep you out of a jam a little bit. How you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Can't believe we're already to September.
Isn't that something? I know it. It's crazy. One of the things we want to talk about was fake websites and how are they used recently?
We have heard from a number of consumers that they're being used a little differently now in jury duty scams. We know that scammers have been known to falsely accuse individuals of missing jury duty, and then they claim they need to pay money to avoid being arrested. But this new twist is that scammers are now telling these individuals to click a link that opens what appears to be an official government website, but it's actually just a very convincing fake controlled by the scammer.
Very interesting. That and how does it relate to jury duty? I think we've talked about that before with like fake phone calls and things like this, but this would be something different, right?
It is. I mean, it relates to jury duty in the context that it's something that people know that they need to serve. They trust that an announcement that it's their turn, but they don't know how the process works. So a scammer can take advantage of that, and each municipality is a little different in how they implement that as well. But what we've seen is that this scam starts with a call or text claiming to come from a local law enforcement agency, and after the consumer hears this concerning news that they've missed their jury duty notice, they're sent a link to this website, again, looking very official, and it's sounding official with the URL and that page design. But the website then asks the consumer to enter their birth date and their Social Security number to find out how much they owe. And in some cases, it's claimed that they've owed thousands of dollars in unpaid fines for not appearing for jury duty. And now the scam has the consumer's private information as well. So the next step is then to convince the consumer to send money to pay these fines. So the scammer might ask for a payment by card to be entered through that same website, which then gives them access to that financial data. Or they've asked the consumer to pay at a government kiosk, which doesn't really exist. And it's the scammer's name for a cryptocurrency ATM, or referred to as BTMs. And so if a consumer follows these instructions and puts cash into this crypto machine, it will really be very difficult to recover any funds for the consumer.
Is there a way for the scammers to sort of blackmail people? You know, hey, I've got your information, and use it against you?
Well, that sounds like the next step that could easily be coming because they'll have that. But really, they wouldn't even have to blackmail the consumer because the consumer has just handed over that personal information and now has to be concerned about identity theft and always be mindful and watchful because a consumer, that scammer, wouldn't even really have to announce what they're going to do with it. They can just try and take advantage of the consumer behind their backs and do so repeatedly. So this is a scary new twist that consumers really need to be on the watch for. If they ever get notice that it's time to serve for jury duty, they can confirm that with the clerk of courts in their municipality to verify that. And usually first notification comes by letter and tells them what phone number to call to see if they need to report. And it also tells them how to get an exception if they should need a waiver for some reason because the date parameters won't work. So there is a process in place for each municipality, and they should reach out again to that clerk of courts to find out more details versus trusting a phone call or a text message.
We're having the Richland County Clerk of Courts on with us on the talk show later this month, so we can ask her more about that as well. So,
that'd be wonderful, because one of the best prevention tips is to be informed about processes so we don't get thrown off guard and have scare tactics worked against us.
Next up, preventing tech support scams. What can you tell us about that this month?
Well, here, a consumer recently reported to DADCAP that they encountered a threatening computer pop-up that said there was an issue with their device which required technical support. So that's not new. That's the standard scam we've talked about many times. But in this case, the consumer called a phone number listed on the pop-up, not realizing this was a scam attempt, which would then try to convince them that their bank was stealing their money. So when they made that call, the consumer was instructed by the fake tech support specialist to download a program that allowed the scammer that remote access to their entire computer. Next, this scammer said the consumer had money stolen from their account multiple times in recent days by someone working at their bank. And the scammer claimed they needed to then work with the FBI to track which bank employee was taking the consumer's money. They guided the individual through setting up an online bank account, which they didn't previously have. Then finally, the scammer tried to seal the deal by telling the consumer to wire more than $14,000 to another account for a sting operation against their own bank. And it was, of course, the consumer's money that they were asked to wire. So thankfully, the consumer didn't give in to that high-pressure tactic or that false sense of urgency. And one of the other signs that was present during this was that an insistency to not tell anyone else about the situation. They weren't allowed to confer with friends or family members about it, and the consumer did disregard that, so that it saved them from losing more than $14,000.
That would be a definite red flag if you're not able to talk to anybody about it, right?
It needs to be. The high-pressure tactics, a false sense of urgency, all need to be. If anyone gets this call and they're at all concerned about transactions and that they think their money's disappearing from their bank, go to the bank. Go to the bank, talk to a teller, get a current statement, and you can see your money and where it has gone and not gone. You compare it to the previous month's statement, and you can validate that your money is still there and not disappearing from your account.
PayPal scams remaining popular. What's the latest on that, Michelle?
Yes, they are remaining very popular. We continue to receive phone calls from consumers who were targeted by scammers on several different variations of PayPal scams. The scammer's main goal here is to try to convince consumers to send them money, but they have a secondary goal, and it's to steal that personal information or private data. So think bank account numbers and account login details. So there's a couple different steps consumers can take based on the type of interaction they are having. If a consumer receives an unfamiliar PayPal invoice, they shouldn't react right away. Instead, they should pause, check their records to see if they made any purchase that matched the description, and then talk about the invoice with someone that they trust and only send money for purchases they know are real. However, if a consumer is overpaid through PayPal and the sender asks them to wire back the difference, that is likely a scam. The scammer may have used stolen money to send the payment and is trying just to clean it by scamming someone else. Instead of sending any money back to the sender or any company, consumers should consider canceling the order completely. And then the final area of advice I think we have on this is if a consumer is asked to pay extra fees through PayPal for prizes, shipping costs, unpaid taxes, different business expenses for a new job, or any other reason that seems unusual, uncommon, or unfamiliar, they should just stop right away. It's very unlikely that legitimate sources will ask for these payments to be sent through PayPal. Just remember, don't open any links or use any contact information ever provided in these types of requests. Always rely on your foundational information and go to your account and log in the way you normally would. Or in this case, go to the PayPal help center that they have on their official website.
PayPal, yeah, that's the way to go. Right to the main source there and, kind of go from there, right?
Yeah, and because we're talking PayPal, that's exactly right. If you ever get a text message or phone call or email that has any of these similar signs from a different well-known company, let's say like last month we were talking Amazon, always go to that official website and that official source to navigate what your next steps should be, as opposed to clicking the links or using the contact information that might be provided in the message that you received.
It won't be long. We'll be needing some winter storage. Any tips about that and staying safe?
Yeah, there are. And isn't that sad? We already have to think about winter, and we just experienced Labor Day here.
Right.
But you may have some fun summer toys, things, boats, recreational vehicles, or other items that could need storage. And we want everyone to be aware that DADCAP is responsible for regulating public warehouse keepers who store for hire. And what store for hire means is that a public warehouse keeper is paid to maintain custody of another person's stored property. This doesn't include those rental storage units or self-storage, where consumers who rent those types of units assume the responsibility for the safekeeping of the property stored in the rented space, and then they have access to their unit either during normal business hours or maybe, it's 24/7. But in public warehouse keepers, they are licensed by DADCAP and include many types of businesses that store a variety of items for individuals or other businesses. They could include a warehousing company that handles product distribution, maybe a moving company that stores household goods, a vehicle dealership or service center that provides off-season storage for boats, RVs, power sport vehicles, or even farmers who offer an empty barn, shed, or field as a storage space. So, we want consumers to make sure that when they are selecting a public warehouse, they consider those storage requirements that they have for the property they are storing, and is the storage they're looking at appropriate for those needs. So a perfect example is if my property is going to be stored indoors or outdoors, that may or may not be appropriate for the type of item that you're going to be storing. And we also want to make sure that it's suitable for the products that are stored, but make sure to use a licensed facility. And one way you can do that is by checking out the licensed facilities on our website, because we go through a whole bunch of questions and make sure that they are meeting the requirements of the regulations. So you can go to datcp.wi.gov to download that list when you're on the hunt for where to store your goods.
How does insurance work with that? Does it work on your own policy or that facility? Do they have to have insurance as well?
Well, consumers need to talk to their insurance company about that. Those public warehouse keepers are required to have insurance that will only cover particular situations. And based on the good that you're storing, that may cover things, but you also may need enhanced coverage for the item, the other factors that aren't covered. So that is something you'll want to talk to your insurance agent about to see if you would want enhanced coverage, again, based on the value of the item.
One thing you mentioned earlier in our conversation was cryptocurrency. Is there any update on that or ways to stay safe, or what's your opinion on it?
Well, if you're ever asked to make a payment or secure your money by getting cryptocurrency, that is a red flag of a scam. There's no change there. It's not a regulated currency, and so it's not going to be secure. If you have some fun money, $10, $20, and you want to get into cryptocurrency like your cousin, has, and you just want something fun to watch, to experience it, because again, it's fun money, that's a different story, and you could look at it. But again, it's not a true, secure, regulated investment. So don't let anyone talk you into thinking that it is a true investment. It's really just something fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's important to know what it is going into it. That's great. Thanks for the information this week, this month. Michelle, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you, oh my goodness, in October.
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions or needs any materials before October, reach out to the Consumer Protection Hotline at 1-800-422-7128 or go to our website at datp.wi.gov.
All right, Michelle Reinen joining us on our morning show today. Michelle's from Consumer Protection, DATCAP, here on WRCO's Morning Show.